Deep in the rolling hills of western New York stands a lonely farmhouse, its paint cracked and faded by half a century of winters. Locals say that when the wind moves through the trees just right, the air around the house hums, as if the land itself is remembering. It is known simply as the Hinsdale House. In the early 1970s, a family fled from the home, claiming it was alive with voices, shadows, and something older than the building itself. Their story drew priests as well as mediums and skeptics alike. It ended in failure and silence, but never closure. To this day, investigators still record the whispers that echo through its empty rooms, photographs, eyewitness accounts, and preserved audio tapes that continue to defy explanation. Tonight, we reopen the case. This is the Hinsdale House haunting. Hinsdale, New York, 1973. A quiet farming community southwest of Buffalo. It's the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbor, where gravel roads stretch endlessly through the forest, and where the night sky still burns with starlight. There's nothing extraordinary about it, except for the house that waits just beyond McMahon Road. In 1973, Phil and Clara Dandy relocated their 4 children, searching for calm and the promise of rural life. The farmhouse was old, but inviting. A wraparound porch facing the distant hills, walls that breathed with age, and wooden floors that sang beneath each step. It was at first glance perfect. But neighbors spoke of the land's strange reputation. They said livestock refused to graze near its fence line, and that lights flickered in the windows long after it stood empty. One man claimed he saw a figure standing on the porch in the middle of the night, though the house had no occupants. The Dandies laughed off the warnings. Country superstition, they thought. But from the first evening, unease seemed to seep from the walls. The air carried a charge, like the moment before lightning strikes. Shadows appeared darker than they should have been. And the silence, it felt heavy, as if the woods themselves were listening. Within days, Clara noticed chills that moved through rooms like invisible drafts. Phil described waking in the night to the sense that someone was standing beside the bed. Doors creaked open without wind, and the family cat hissed at corners where no one stood. Family snapshots from those first weeks show smiles and sunlight, yet behind those smiles lay sleepless nights and whispered doubts. Because even then, something had begun to make itself known. The pacing of unseen feet in the attic, and soft knocks that answered when no one spoke. And then, late one night, came the whispers. It began in the upstairs hallway, just murmurs at first, quiet and uncertain. Then the words slowly began to form. Calm, deliberate, and close, as if something was standing directly next to them. The first incident arrived quietly, the kind of moment that feels insignificant until it refuses to stop. Clara Dandy was alone in the kitchen, cleaning after dinner. Outside, the children played near the tree lines, and Phil was still gone to town. The house was calm, warm from the oven, and then, from somewhere above her, came the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, and unmistakably human. She froze. The steps crossed the attic once, paused, then crossed again. Dust trembled from the ceiling. Clara called out, expecting to hear her husband's voice, but only silence answered. She waited, then climbed the narrow staircase, her heart hammering with each creak. The attic was empty, containing only still air and dust motes drifting in the sunlight. No footprints, no intruder. She stood listening, and that's when the steps began again, this time directly below her, pacing across the kitchen floor where she had just been. Clara fled the attic and found nothing out of place, only the faint echo of movement fading to silence. Over the next nights, the noises returned. At first, soft and rhythmic, like someone circling the rooms just out of sight. Then came the voices. Two of them, one male and one female, speaking in hushed tones, too faint to understand, but too close to dismiss. They moved with purpose, whispering through walls that shouldn't carry sound. The dandies bought a simple tape recorder, hoping to prove the house was settling or the pipes were knocking. But when they played the recordings back, they heard what sounded like low-tone breathing, uneven and human. Then, beneath it, a hum, not mechanical, not winged, but something else. Investigators who later analyzed those tapes found the same sound, a frequency lower than the human voice, resonating like a heartbeat inside the silence. Skeptics call it background noise, but anyone who's ever listened to the Hinsdale tapes can tell the difference between empty air and the presence that is making itself known. After that, nothing in the house was still again. The walls seemed to breathe, and the floors answered every step, and the dandies began to understand that whatever lived there had only just started to make itself known. The disturbances soon turned violent. What began as knocks and whispers became chaos. One morning, the dandies woke to find the house transformed. Every bed had been shifted from its place. Chairs were stacked neatly in corners, and the kitchen table turned on its side as if by invisible hands. The family searched for signs of intrusion, but every door and window was locked from the inside. There were no footprints in the dust, no one had entered, at least no one they could see. Over the following weeks, the activity intensified. Pictures ripped themselves from walls and crashed to the floor. Silverware clattered in drawers without reason, and objects vanished and reappeared in impossible places, like a Bible sealed inside a cabinet and a crucifix twisted until the wood cracked. Clara began waking to faint humming near her bed, and the children spoke of a man-shaped shadow standing at the end of the hallway. Sometimes they saw a woman beside him, pale, silent, and dressed as if she had stepped from another century. Neighbors began noticing strange things too. Lights flickered in the windows long after the family had fled outside, and a chanting, low and rhythmic, echoed through the woods. The family's dog refused to cross the porch again, growling at empty air before retreating to the yard. Police were called more than once. One officer later admitted that he felt a crushing pressure in his chest as soon as he stepped inside, like the air was squeezing the life out of the room. He never returned. Inside, the dandies found new markings carved deep into the wood floors and walls. Long scratches, like claws dragging through the grain. Photographs of these scars still exist in archives today, proof of the unseen violence that ruled their home. Clara tried to fight back with faith. She walked the rooms with holy water and a prayer, whispering blessings through her tears. But the house seemed to respond with flickering lights, slamming doors, and the sound of laughter echoing from the attic. Whatever lived there no longer intended on staying quiet. By early 1974, the Dandy family had reached their breaking point. Objects still flew across rooms. Voices now shouted instead of whispered, and the children refused to sleep upstairs. Every night the house felt colder and heavier, as if something beneath the floorboards had woken and wanted to be heard. In desperation, Clara wrote to the church. Father Troubled, a Franciscan priest known for confronting spiritual disturbances, answered her plea. He had performed blessings before, but never one on this scale. With him, Alex Tanis, a respected psychic researcher from the University of Southern Maine, whose work often bridged faith and science. Together, they arrived armed with crucifixes, candles, reel-to-reel recorders, and the belief that prayer alone could still overcome fear. The exorcism began after sundown. The family gathered in the living room, clutching rosaries as Father Troubled sprinkled holy water and began to pray in Latin. Witnesses recall the air turning so cold that their breath floated in white clouds. The candles flickered violently, though no window was open. The priest's words echoed against the walls like they were being thrown back at him. Then, the recorders captured something new, a rhythmic knocking that matched the cadence of the prayer, as though the house itself were answering in defiance. Seconds later came the growl. Deep, guttural, and impossibly close to the microphone. The lights exploded in a burst of glass. Alex Tanner stumbled backward, later describing it as a wave of unseen force that pushed through his chest and threw him to the floor. He gasped, claiming he felt something move through him, a presence both ice-cold and furious. Still, Father Troubled continued, voice trembling, but unbroken, calling out to whatever lingered within the walls. And then, the scream, high, human, and piercing, captured on tape, yet no one present could remember making it. When the sound ended, so did the prayer. The house fell silent, and every candle extinguished at once. The silence was thick, unnatural, the kind that feels aware. Father Troubled gathered his things and told the family quietly, "It's too strong, please leave this place." He left a wooden cross on the mantel and blessed the door before stepping out into the snow. The house did not respond. But from that night forward, the dandies understood it would never let them go. The tapes made during Father Troubled's exorcism have become infamous among paranormal researchers. For decades, they've been studied, dissected, filtered, and restored, yet their origin remains unexplained. Even experienced audio engineers admit they cannot account for what they contain. The recordings begin normally, the priest's calm Latin prayers echoing through the wooden room, the soft flicker of candlelight, and the occasional shuffle of feet. Then, layer by layer, the impossible appears. When slowed down, a woman's voice emerges beneath the prayer, faint and weeping. When reversed, a deep male tone mutters a single word, "Stay." In one segment, 3 sharp knocks strike the wall in perfect rhythm with the priest's chanting. Investigators who later returned to the house were able to replicate the exact pattern of knocks in the same location, as though whatever answered had been waiting all this time. Sound analysts point out that many of the recordings include infrasound frequencies, vibrations lower than the human ear can detect, under 20 Hz. Such tones can induce dizziness, anxiety, and even the illusion of presence, yet no known equipment inside the house could have produced them. To this day, no one has discovered the source. The tapes continue to circulate in archives and online forums, studied frame by those chasing truth in static. Each clip adds another layer to the mystery, whispers overlapping the priest's voice, sighs of breath when the room was empty, and faint phrases that shift each time they are played. Even now, when modern investigators replay those same words inside the house, they often receive a response, a whisper that threads through the static, answering questions no one should be able to hear. It is never the same voice twice, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, but always there. When the exorcism failed, the Dandy family packed what they could and left before sunrise. They sold the property for almost nothing, never returning to collect what was left behind. For years, they refused to speak of it. Reporters tried, researchers asked, but none of them would go on record. Clara once admitted privately that she still dreamed of the house, that she could feel it watching her in her sleep. Even away from Hinsdale, it followed them. Clara began receiving phone calls filled with static, no voice at first, just the faint hiss of a poor connection. Then, one night, she heard her own name whispered through the line, spoken by a woman she didn't recognize. Phil dreamed of the farmhouse every night for months, windows glowing red, footsteps on the stairs, something standing just out of sight. They had escaped the building, but not the presence that lingered within it. The house sat abandoned for decades. Weed swallowed the porch, the roof sagged, and the paint peeled in long, curling strips. Travelers passing through town said the property felt wrong, as if the ground itself resisted being walked upon. Some nights, faint lights were seen through the windows, though the house had no power. In 2015, paranormal researcher Daniel Clays purchased the Hinsdale House. Instead of restoring it to erase its history, he preserved it, keeping it exactly as it stood during the haunting. His goal was to make it a living museum of the unknown, a place where researchers could confront the past directly. Since reopening, hundreds of teams have entered its doors. Cameras drain their batteries within minutes. Recorders capture voices whispering names no one present knows. Some investigators hear singing, others hear sobbing. One group recorded a female voice whispering, "I'm in the attic."
Right. Yeah.
Somebody just yelled?
Yeah. Yeah, it was me.
Who's making these K2 meters and these meters go off?
Another caught the laughter of a child echoing down the stairs. Some leave pale and trembling, others promise never to return. But a few, the brave or the foolish, still go back, convinced the house is waiting for something, or someone, to finally listen.